This went deeper and wider than I thought it would have, because to their point, there are communities now that are struggling with the water that's coming from data cooling centers, and more of them are being built. Looking, Amazon just invested $20 billion in the state of Pennsylvania alone around, this very thing that we're talking about, and the waterway supply that is being impacted by the local communities where their water is turning to sludge. They're not getting a water pressure. I didn't even think about that aspect of it, but there's so much more to discuss. We have to move on, though. Local newsrooms are navigating significant challenges in sustaining their operations while continuing to serve their communities. In this session, several Philadelphia local news sustainability grant recipients will join Cheryl Thomson-Morton for a candid conversation about how support from the Lenfest Institute is helping them innovate and build resilience. Cheryl, are you here? Come on up. Oh, my sister. We had a good conversation at lunch. Okay, and she will introduce the other people, Monique, Eric, Jacob, and Mina. Come on up.
All right, you can hear me now. All right. So we're here to talk about money, but other stuff as well. Here to talk about sustainability. I'm happy to be with you all and be back in Philadelphia. My name is Cheryl Thomson-Morton. I'm the head of advisory programs at Lenfest, which means that I provide coaching and consulting for newsrooms looking to grow their sustainability. So if you need help with that, let's talk. And I'm here today to talk to several people who are helping and are receiving services from Lenfest to help build out that sustainability. We know that local news is the lifeblood of our communities, or is part of that lifeblood, but if we don't have money, if we don't know what we need to be successful, we won't exist. And so these four folks are really going to speak to that today. So I want to start first with Monique, who is publisher and editor of Generosity, and Eric, who is the publisher of Fun Times Magazine. And I really just want to hear from you both. You both have engaged in Philadelphia programming from Lenfest around sustainability. Can you talk about how that has impacted your newsroom, yourself, your organization overall in the sustainability?
Hello, everyone. So there is the sustainability program, but I have to say that I think I've been in every local Lenfest program, starting with Constellation, Philadelphia Media Founders Exchange. My background, I am not a journalist. I am a consultant in the social impact space. And in 2022, Chris Swink and Technically Media reached out to offer Generosity to me. So after going through Constellation, the first part of the PMFE program, I completed acquisition in 2023. So the education from the programs allowed me to understand media. I read media, didn't understand the business of media and how to run a newsroom. So the coaching, the programming provided me that foundation. The money helped me to hire staff, hire freelancers, build out my tech stack, and experiment to figure out where Generosity could now fit within the media ecosystem.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that piece about like being able to experiment, having the space to try things and see what works. Eric, what's your experience?
Well, I think something that is underrated is having your business doors open. There is a saying that a living dog is greater than a dead lion. So, what am I saying? If your business is open, then you have options. You have opportunities of doing any other thing. If your business is not open, that's it. My participation in Lenfest programs gave me the opportunity of keeping my doors open. And that was the beginning. We have always been a print magazine, printing 100-page glossy magazine. And if you are into print, you know what goes with that, the cost that is involved. So we are constantly running from advertisers to printers, back to advertisers, back to printers, and that was our routine, the financial treadmill, until COVID hit. When COVID hit, most businesses closed their doors. We had a launch program scheduled for March 26, 2020, and we had to cancel it at African American Museum. So we now pivoted online. When we pivoted online, how we were able to sustain our business was through Lenfest programming. We had mitigating vaccine hesitancy program. We executed it. After that, we also executed creating awareness around 988. I'm wondering if any of you know what 988 is. It's the federal crisis line. No, Jim, you are not qualified to answer questions. So after we did it, then we started the program about sustaining local media. So we've done quite a lot, and then fast forward, we are part of the Press Forward, Closing Local Gap Information, and so many other relationships we have created with Solution Journalism. So between Independence Public Media Foundation, Lenfest, Knight Foundation, and all these other ones, that was how we were able to take our business to the next level.
Thank you for sharing that and that important vulnerability of if the doors aren't open, if we're struggling and going back and forth, there's no time to grow the business. There's no time to future-proof. And so I really appreciate that context. Mina, I want to go to you. So Mina is the facilitator of our audience community of practice, which brings and convenes together audience practitioners to share best practices. I know you've been kind of doing this work for a long time, so you've seen changes in the field. Can you talk a little bit about some of the benefits you've seen for individuals being a part of a community of practice, and also some of the changes that you've noticed over the years?
Sure. So I think the biggest thing with a community of practice is we're all in journalism, we're all in competitive newsrooms, and sometimes it takes a space outside of your normal space to bring down those barriers and increase collaboration. So I think that's really a lot of what I do is level the playing field as much as I can, make sure that we're sharing information in, a very kind of casual, off the record, often environment, and that we're talking to each other. I also kind of feel a little bit like a matchmaker in this group because even though most of us know each other, at least on social media, I'm kind of surprised at how shy some of these journalists can be. I'm like, we are professional, go get all up into a stranger's business the first 5 minutes you meet them in person, and you need me to introduce you to this person who you already know and have done Zoom calls with for a month. I'm like, okay. So now I just tell people, look, if you need me to be your icebreaker with someone and set up a conversation, I can do that. If there's something we want to know from someone who is either inaccessible to you, maybe because you've got a small newsroom, or because someone in this group is doing something really cool, I can tee that up. So I think I'm kind of that outside entity that breaks down the competitiveness and makes us more likely to talk to one another.
That's great. So you're seeing a growth in the kind of collaboration between some of the newsrooms?
Yeah, I think we all recognize the moment of news that we're in and that we're going to be able to go a lot further by working together than working independently. And I can tell you, I've been a Newswire reporter and I've been in a press room with a whole bunch of people. And sometimes you're like, there is so much hitting the fan that all we can do is split it up and piece it back together and hope for the best.
Yeah.
And I think a lot more people acknowledge that. And I think that there's so much movement in media now. People are like, look, let's all work together to get this news out and to inform our communities and know that, today's competitor might be tomorrow's collaborator, the person who hires me. So I'm just going to relax a little bit and play my piece in this world.
Thank you for that. Jacob is the managing editor at Oaklandside and is a part of Did I get it right, Oakland side, or is it?
Yeah, Oakland side.
Okay,
The-
perfect.
The title is kind of right. And that may be my fault for feeding you an old bio, but was the managing editor at the Oakland side for the first 4 years or so of that newsroom's life, and then currently in a position as a community journalism director with Cityside, which is the nonprofit publisher of the Oakland side and Berkeley side, and now Richmond side, which we launched about a year ago. And this is, you know, far away. This is Bay Area, California. Flew in from Oakland, and just want to say really appreciate being in Philadelphia, and have met so many incredible people doing really inspiring work, and it's nice to make a connection with the city.
We
Yes.
love having you here. Thank you for coming. So you're a part of our stateside or statewide, I'm sorry, Engaged Cities News Collective. Can you talk a little bit about what that experience has been like for you, what you've gained from it, and how it's been actually being a participant?
For sure. So we've had a couple touch points with Lenfest, and just a little bit of context. Cityside is a nonprofit. We founded about 6 years ago, but it grew out of Berkeley Side, which was originally a for-profit local news, organization, and founded the nonprofit about 6 years ago. Launched the Oakland Side as a second newsroom, and like I said, we were about a year into our work in Richmond. Yeah, with Lenfest, we've participated in the communities of practice. We've also benefited from the Engaged Cities program. And both of those have been, I'm just going to say, instrumental to my work. As a community journalism director. It's like, well, what is that, right? I mean, I'm involved in different aspects of the work with all of our newsrooms. But it's really, to boil it down, I'm looking at how are we listening to the communities that we're covering? How are we making sure that we're continuously in a dialogue with our audiences and our communities? How is that showing up in our journalism? And how are we partnering with other folks in our communities to kind of carry that work forward? And so, 10 years ago, we could even say 5 years ago, there probably weren't many people with a title like mine working for local news organizations, right? More and more in recent years, I find that there are individuals that I encounter at different, local news organizations especially, that are kind of putting revenue behind this idea of community listening and community engagement. And so, I feel like I'm really building the bridge as I kind of do this work. And so having access to communities of practice, having access to organizations that sort of see the value in that type of work and are willing to invest in our organization to do it is really critical. And I would say that some of the most exciting work that I've done over the past year has been a direct sort of outcropping from just conversations, formal and informal sharing with other folks in the industry that are doing really interesting things around community engagement, and just getting ideas from people that are willing to share, and then kind of tweaking that and making that our own, and doing some pretty cool experiments when it comes to community engagement. So yeah, it's been critical.
That's awesome. It sounds like it's helping to work smarter, not harder, learning from the experience of others and being able to build on that.
I think that's right. And I 100% agree with Mina's sentiment of the importance of collaborating and not competing.
Yeah.
It's definitely our ethos with other media organizations in our area is definitely to take the approach of collaborating and not competing. And I think we just really need that mindset more than ever right now.
Absolutely. Monique, I want to kind of go back to you based on a conversation that we had in preparing for this panel around kind of something that you learned in a session around blockchain that you're now implementing in your business. Can you talk a little bit more about that kind of aha moment and how you've been applying it to your news organization?
Yeah, sustainability also means the longevity of your publication. And in the PMFE session, and you'd have to ask Joss, because I don't remember the actual context of the conversation, but she started to talk about blockchain and how like EcoWord is actually on the blockchain. And During COVID, I think I was deep in blockchains. I got my MetaMask account and I was buying NFTs. So like I was understanding of all those things, but never really thought about it in the context of media. So actually started researching it a little bit. But then once everything started happening with this administration, when we started writing articles about immigration policies and what's happening and who can go where to get services, our hosting site, they tell us our threat level. So every month we get a report about how many threats they have blocked for us. And we started to see an uptick in our threats. Also, users have an ability to create an account on our sites to be able to post job postings and things like that. We started seeing an uptick in spam bots creating accounts on our site. So I was like, how do I protect my business? How do I make sure that people don't take it down? And that conversation or that comment from Joss popped back up into my head. And it's the idea that we are now able to put our stories on the blockchain, which means that it is now coded onto the blockchain. There's a contract that is created. And if Generosity's front page, if our main website goes down, these stories still exist regardless. I know I was having a conversation earlier about people reprinting our articles or some small outlet in Middle Pennsylvania that literally repost our articles verbatim, and then the person who cited it is now the author of our articles, and our ping back on our WordPress is like, this person mentioned your article, but it's not, they didn't mention it, it's the whole article. So being able to maintain the ownership, being able to maintain the safety. I was at the Lenfest News Philanthropy Summit a couple of weeks ago, and one of the speakers said, we are writing the draft of history. And when she said it, I was like, yes, and we have to make sure that we are maintaining these drafts. So if our sites goes down and our articles and our archives are gone and we're no longer able to track and publish what is going on, are we being sustainable?
I love that, I have a lot of conversations with people about what does the archive look like in the digital world when things are changing, and so having this permanent record of the work is a big part of the sustainability for the long term, so I appreciate that. Eric, are there any aha moments that you've had? I know you and I go back to like 2017 at Lenfest, so
right.
You've been a partner with Lenfest for a long time.
Yes, once we went online, the paradigm changed, the discussion. So if you're into publishing, you will know that there is some challenge in geographic, when you want to distribute, there are some challenges geographically, right? But when you go online, then you don't have such boundaries. So when we went online and 100% online, we realized that our audience is not limited to the Delaware Valley. So until March 2020, we had around 2,400 followers on Facebook. As at now, we have over 100,000 followers on Facebook. As at March 2020, we had about 900 on our Instagram. Right now, we have over 30,000 on our Instagram. Mm-hmm. So it changed the conversation. It changed who is your audience. It changed who can you focus. So we have also used the opportunity to now be able to target people, target audience, drill down to our niche audience, which zip codes do we want to see any information we're publishing. So as far as I'm concerned, it was a game changer when we went online. And the added level was, of course, I finished my doctorate. And then what I studied was, my research is the interplay between social identity formation and social media adoption. Basically, people like Andrea that post stuff, like some people I know 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning. When people go there and validate, when people go there and show some response, how do they feel? Well, that is the bottom line of what influence is all about. Mm-hmm. And when you are able to communicate with people at that level, then that is a game changer. So in summary, moving online was amongst the best thing that happened to us. And I'm very grateful to Lenfest and all the other nonprofit organizations, Independence Public Media Foundation. I think I've mentioned them before, for sustaining our business. And I thank God that we are alive. Our doors were open for the opportunities.
And it's amazing to hear how that investment has led to that level of growth and to hear kind of some of the impact that keeping the doors open can have, kind of going back to your first point. Mina, I'd love to go to you and hear of any success cases that you've seen over your years of people working together or people growing their organizations based on what they've learned in the community of practice, and any challenges you see in the model or approach.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's so many times people will come to me and say, hey, I'm having this weird problem. How can I solve it or figure out what's going on? And a lot of times it'll be connecting them with someone in the group, and that person will help them solve something. And it's like, I have battled with this for months and paid consultants so much money, and this person was able to help me fix it in 4 minutes for $0. So to me, each of those moments is kind of a form of success. One of the things that I really loved when I started doing this job a few years ago was I had worked in a lot of different outlets, and I'd been in outlets where it's like, okay, Instagram and Facebook love me and they'll speak to me, and then I go somewhere else, and it's only been a week, but I'm dead to everybody. And I think that that's something that's kind of always been in my mind, is we don't all have equal access to this information, and it could benefit more of us. So I've always kind of tried to say, how do we get this necessary information out to as many people as possible and help bring some of these other people with us who are not necessarily going to have access to this? So one of the things that I've done early on was bring in people from platforms. And I've told everyone in the group, it's if there is somebody who's kind of being a pain and not responding to you, and you need to talk to them and the rest of us would probably benefit from them, call me so that we can kind of give them a little bit of pressure and make them feel like this is an academic learning thing and make them feel a little bad for not participating. And that way we can all kind of have a little bit more access to this information that many of us really need to do our jobs. So I think for me, it's anytime those light bulbs go off and I can help someone solve a problem or just help two people who should know each other and who should be talking to each other actually talk to each other, I think that to me is okay, that's why I do this.
Yes, love that. Jacob, I want to start this question with you, but I would love to hear from each of you, kind of as you're in this current moment that we're in. The media climate is quite intense. I'm wondering, what support are you looking for in this moment? What would be helpful to you? Maybe that's different than what Lenfest is currently offering, or what opportunities do you think are available that we should seize?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different directions you could go with that, right? But thinking about the challenges that are sort of confronting our sector, again, as a nonprofit organization, revenue is always near the top of that list that's a daily, that's a daily
You got a
grind.
plus one over there, a whisper, but a plus one.
So, the revenue equation is always there. We spoke about, getting into some of the AI, and I think that's another just sort of area where there's a lot of sort of questions, about how that could impact our work that's still playing out. But where I'm going to take it sort of back to sustainability is that for us, as a local news publisher with local newsrooms, building trust and building actual relationships with our communities is foundational to our success. We're not only going after philanthropic dollars, and we're not just going after ad revenue, which we do also as a nonprofit, but a big chunk of our support is coming from just folks in the community who are giving $10, $20 a month, and that is that's a huge part of what we do and a huge part of our sustainability, in addition to other people in the community that have deeper pockets and can write some bigger checks, right? But, you combine those groups and you're talking about, a good third of our revenue is coming from that. Like, it's local people seeing value in our work and making that investment. And so when I think about what does our newsroom need, I think we need to grow our capacity even more to be in the community, to show up in the community in very real ways, whether that's through doing more events, whether that's just kind of more informal pop-ups, whether that's like some of the work that was carried out with support from Lenfest this year in Richmond, where we worked with community members as trusted messengers, and I know, that's a topic of conversation here today. All of these approaches that require resources but enable us to build relationships with people in the community where they are, just understanding that not everyone is going to be coming to our site to read a 1,200-word article, or even, going to our IG to check out some of our, Instagram reels or stories. And so I think that, I would say just more investment in building capacity for local media and news organizations to just do more, to be present in the community, to get off the page, as well as develop new strategies online to reach new audience. I think just being in the community more. And that requires resources.
Yeah. Any other thoughts before we go open it up?
A couple things. I think that I was having a conversation earlier about what ecosystem means. And I think that really strengthening the ecosystem, like if we're talking about collaboration, I need to know who else is in the ecosystem to collaborate, what their beat is, where the actual alignment is, and how can we really support that. And I think the easiest thing, I know a lot of like individual programs I'm in, like people always introduce themselves and we put our information in the chat and we all follow each other. But why not, is there a way for Lenfest or for other partners just to be like, here are our newsrooms, follow them. Here's their social media, follow them, right? Because that's a easy ask and an easy lift, but it actually might lead to something powerful. It might lead to more dollars. It might lead to more partners because now someone is being introduced to you through a trusted source to be like, oh, let me pay more attention to them.
Thank you for that. I think we're going to open it up for questions now. In the back.
Good afternoon. This question is specifically for Jacob, but anybody can chime in. Your model and even your position is that you've doubled down on actually getting out into communities and doing more direct community engagement. That's something that a lot of newsrooms, especially recently, have started to pull away from out of concern for resources. Why is it, or why do you feel that that particular model of doubling down on engagement will help build your capacity and help build sustainability?
It's a good question. I'm just going to start with the caveat that we haven't cracked the code, I mean, we don't feel like we have the answer, to sustainability. But I do think that just fundamentally, I think this is something that grew out of our launching of the Oakland newsroom 5 years ago. Before we ever created a website, before we even hired a newsroom staff, a few smart people in the organization realized that we can't do this. It certainly can't do this in Oakland without talking to people first and asking people what they want, right? And so, there was this pretty tremendous community listening sort of effort that went into launching that news organization before we did anything else. So we had a story to tell, right, when we launched that newsroom about who we were, what we did, and what we were going to be doing, and connecting that to the conversations we had with community members. I think that again, to me, just established from the get-go a certain level of credibility and trust, right? And I think that, when you are operating as a nonprofit and you are relying on this sort of mix of foundation dollars as well as appeals to people in the community, I think it's really important to have that story to tell, a genuine story, right, about the work that you've put in so that people understand what this is about and they understand that it is something worth supporting, And so we double down on, just having me in my position and sort of other things that kind of swirl around that. We double down on that because I think it needs to be more than a one and done. It really needs to be a continuous sort of piece of the work that's happening. And it shows up in many, many ways. It's not only about the story that you tell or about the appeals that you're making to folks to open their wallets and support you. It also shows up in the journalism, which, I think strengthens the journalism and then also has an impact in that way of just increasing the value of the product that you're producing, right? So I think it's just, it's a mindset, but I think it's also, for us, it's a critical piece of the equation, and it shows up. It's sort of circular, shows up in different ways.
Joz Duncan Ashe with Love Now Media. How are you all responding to the rapid political and technological shifts? And what are the front lines informing you about how you need to change for a more sustainable business?
Well, well, this is the sign of the times. I mentioned to you we went online. So this is what we are made for now. The technology is here. We're not going to run away. We are not going to be the ostrich that will hide its head in the sand and your body is exposed. So AI is here to stay. If you choose to utilize the technology, wonderful. You will be part of the bandwagon. You benefit from it. If you choose to act as if it doesn't exist, it is at your own detriment. So, just to answer you, Joss, I know you are into AI. Fontines has embraced AI 100%. With regard to the political turmoil, these too shall pass, right? I was interviewing honorary British consul, and he said history sometimes, they go in circles, like a roller coaster, up and down. Smart people will hold down. Sometimes if you stick your head, it may get chopped off. Calm down. And these too shall pass. So, I don't know any person's political leanings here, but I know the type of upheaval that we are going through now, we didn't have it. Sometimes people forget what it is like when you have a very peaceful government, you do your own thing. You don't have to wake up wondering, are you going to lose your head? Are you going to lose your job? What are you going to do today? So I think I will rest my case there.
Thank you.
Nice moment of hope. I really needed that.
It is. We utilize AI, we utilize Noda. So Noda is one of those tools where we can put our story into it and it generates all of our SEO, because I was really bad at having to do my own SEO. We have our own bot that allows for us to do quick summarizations of our events, and we do share that our event recaps are generated by our ARC bot. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we're going on the blockchain. So we'll be on the blockchain by the end of the month.
Awesome. You guys are probably getting sick of hearing me, but I guess I have 2 points. Earlier, Sherry Darden, who's the founder and CEO of Scoop Media, it's a small, very local newsroom out here in Philadelphia. You know, she talked about being able to be in the room to get insights into a lot of the things that she experiences on a regular basis. And I guess for my question, it's kind of in honor of her, but highlighting partnerships and collaborations is a very important part of any newsroom. It's also an important aspect of small businesses. What can small businesses do to collaborate or partner with independent newsrooms, magazines, and, you know, with all of you guys, as well as, you know, national brands that, you know, we're all comfortable with? So, yeah.
So Generosity is a social impact media outlet. So we are very picky, choosy about who we partner with. Because our audience is nonprofits, foundations, and government leaders, we will only partner with organizations that are in alignment with them. Like I get a lot of like, hey, we do toilet cleaning, or it's some like random stuff that I'm like, this is not in alignment, because I'm not trying to bombard our readers with things that have nothing to do for them. I've had this conversation with Eric like over lunch, and he was like, "You trying to eat though?" I'm like, "I know, like I need to eat, like I need to be that alive dog, but also I don't want to lose my audience because I have a very niche audience. I'm almost like a trade publication, so just find the alignment."
So Fontaine's Magazine is a public media. We welcome partnerships. Our platform is for every person. It will not be carrying my face unless you're going to be upset with the ugly face. We want to feature all of you. So if you have any information, just go over to our Fontaine's Magazine. We'll publish it there. We're there to spotlight, to bring visibility to the businesses that are Delaware Valley and outside of Delaware Valley. As a matter of fact, we are trying to be, or we are doing the work of the bridge, Diaspora Bridge. We have featured somebody from London who is originally from Florida, but she's Jamaican. She has Jamaican heritage.